Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Today we're going to be looking at a brand new pack which has come out of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. It's called the King of Vermillion. It's one of the new mini boxes and we'll be looking at the ultra rares. Blackwing Armor Master is a Dark Attribute Winged Beast type synchro monster. It's a level 7 with 2500 attack and 1500 defense. It requires one Blackwing tuner monster and one or more non-tuner monsters to summon it. And the effect is, it cannot be destroyed by battle, and you take no battle damage from attacks involving this card. At the end of the damage step, if this card attacked a monster, you can place one wedge counter on that monster, maximum 1. You can remove all wedge counters from your opponent's monsters. The attack and defense of those monsters that had wedge counters become 0 until the end of this turn. I'm quite surprised that it's taken this long for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links to have this featured. I mean, it is one of the original synchro monsters that was used by Crow in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. We've had much more of their Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 support when they went to the synchro dimension than we have of some of the original cards. And I think this is one of the more iconic ones. The ability to not be destroyed in battle is a decent enough effect, and actually to take no damage from that means you can actually crash into monsters and not have to fear of anything, well, except for if that monster has a card effect which destroys by that effect. The other thing is, if you don't happen to defeat that monster in battle, you leave one of these wedge counters, which means on the very next turn you can just remove that wedge counter and then make that monster's attack points 0 out, and then just beat over it. So at some stage you will be able to get over any of your opponent's monsters. It might be a 2-turn strategy, but it's very easy to manipulate and to deal with. I mean, just look at things like Gale, the Whirlwind, and any of the level 4 monsters. Some of them can special summon themselves really easily to come into a level 7 monster. So meeting even the summoning conditions you could probably just do purely from special summoning. Red Nova Dragon is a Dark Attribute Dragon type synchro monster. It's a level 12 with 3500 attack and 3000 defense. And it requires 2 tuner monsters and 1 Red Dragon Archfiend to summon it. And its effect is, this card gains 500 attack for each tuner monster in your graveyard. It cannot be destroyed by an opponent's card effects. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target the attacking monster, banish this card, and if you do, negate that attack. During the next end phase, special summon this card, banished by this effect. Right, this is one of 2 monsters that's been swarming Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links and the meta for the last couple of weeks. The other one being Shooting Star Dragon. Mostly because they're very dominantly powerful synchro monsters, and actually summoning them isn't particularly difficult. Within the Jack Atlas deck, there are multiple ways of doing this, considering Red Dragon Archfiend is his main go-to monster, and the Red Resonator and the various other Resonators are able to kind of special summon themselves, or to get themselves in a position where they can actually end up on the field really quickly. I mean, all you need is either a level 1 and a level 3 tuner, or 2 level 2 tuners, which all of the Resonator monsters can achieve. They even have search cards specifically for the Resonator series, so if you need a particular one, you can actually get that one and then summon it. Even some of his newer support has been really easy to get Red Dragon Archfiend onto the field. This card actually came out in response to, it was in the duel against Team Ragnarok, because they had the Nordic gods. He faced against, it wasn't Broder, it was the other one who had Thor, who is a 3500 attack synchro monster. And this was the response. Jack needed to find a stronger form of the synchro summoning to be able to defeat it. It was actually featured within Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds in the Japanese version, because there was a side arc that looked into defeating this devil creature, also referred to as Red Nova, which seems to have fused with Red Dragon Archfiend, but they never actually introduced that within the English dubbed. I think it's mostly because of the angel and devil connotations. They really like to stay away from that type of stuff within any Western anime series. It's just one of those taboo subjects. The ability it has, initially it will start off with at least 4500 attack points. Actually, scratch that, it's probably more likely to start off with at least 5000. Because you will need the tuner monster necessary to synchro summon into Red Dragon Archfiend, plus the 2 tuners to synchro summon that Red Dragon Archfiend to become this card. So it's usually at least 5,000 attack points to begin with, and the more tuners you use, or the more you kind of scrap them to the graveyard, the stronger it becomes. It gets to that point where none of your opponent's monsters will ever really be able to reach this pinnacle. The other thing you've got to think of is this card cannot be destroyed by an opponent's card effect, which is a bit of a nightmare because you've got things like Sakuretsu Armor, which are specifically designed to destroy. You've got Raigeki Break, and there are so many ways you would want to just destroy this card. And the other nuisance is, of course, you can't even get rid of this card really by battle. Every time you try and attack into this card, you can just shut down your opponent by banishing this card and negating that effect. The issue I would have with that is that it does leave the field. So if you've got multiple other monsters that you can actually summon and then OTK your opponent, this card will never come back. It has to come back at the end phase specifically. It's not that it can dodge something and then come back instantly. That's one of the biggest downsides. Other than having a little bit of heavy investment, it has to be a very specific deck you're trying to run in order to meet these requirements. It's also susceptible to certain other cards, for example, Dimensional Prison, and you've also got Karma Cut. There's also a Valkyrie card, which actually turns your Valkyrie from attack mode to defense mode, and it can banish one of your opponent's monsters. I'm sure there are other examples as well. There's Dark Core, which you discard one card, you banish one of your opponent's face-up monsters, and there are ways and outs to this card. They just don't tend to be run that heavily. My advice would be just forget about siding these cards. You absolutely need them in the main deck if this is going to continue running at the pace it already is. And the final ultra rare is Tech Genus Wonder Magician. This is light attribute spellcaster type Synchro Tuner, which is level 5 with 1900 attack and 0 defense. And it requires 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner Tech Genus monsters. If this card is synchro summoned, you can target one spell or trap card on the field and to destroy that target. If this card on the field is destroyed, draw 1 card. Once per chain during your opponent's main phase, you can, as a quick effect immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon using this card you control. This is something that was used by Antinomy, who was one of the characters who helped Zero, who was one of the main villains. But he was using it as a means of trying to encourage Yusei and to power him up. This was the person who taught Yusei how to excel synchro. And he did that by using this card alongside another level 5, I think it was Tech Genus Power Gladiator, and then goes into Buster Blader, which is the level 10 excel synchro form. It's a decent enough card because it's not difficult to summon. A lot of your monsters are able to kind of special summon themselves and then go into an instant synchro of this card. This is able to instantly destroy a spell or trap card, whether it be one of your own or one of your opponents. And of course, when it's destroyed or when it leaves the field, you are able to replace it by drawing a new card, which is always a decent advantage. Out of the 3 cards, my favourite is probably Armoured Master, just because it has the ability to out any of these other 2 cards. Of course, it's susceptible to card effect destruction, but being able to leave these wedge counters means you're able to rip your opponent's attack points to 0 and probably OTK within the next turn. I don't really have any problems with any of the other cards. I just think that Red Nova Dragon is a little bit more difficult to summon, and it has to be in a very niche style of deck, whereas the other 2 are a little bit more flexible and they need less consistent means of summoning them. What do you guys think of these 3 cards? Are you running any of these types of decks? And which is your least favourite? Leave those comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily Yu-Gi-Oh content.